We're going to begin this hour with the latest diplomatic efforts to secure a ceasefire in the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Saudi Arabia today for renewed talks with his regional counterparts. And this is video into us this morning as Blinken met with the Saudi foreign minister before a wider discussion with Gulf allies, the Gulf Cooperation Council, whose members include the UAE, Qatar, and Oman. The U.S. State Department said Blinken's priorities include securing a new ceasefire and negotiating the release of more hostages. Blinken arrived in Riyadh just hours after U.S. President Joe Biden spoke by phone with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The White House said Biden reiterated his position on the impending Israeli invasion of Rafah. The U.S. has repeatedly warned Israel against launching an operation into that southern Gaza city. We lead off the coverage with Abby Kugathasan from London. It is Blinken's seventh trip to the Middle East since the war began almost 7 months ago. What is he pushing for now?
Heather, he says his top focus here is the humanitarian crisis inside Gaza. And Blinken says the most effective way to alleviate that is with a ceasefire. He made those comments in Riyadh. That's where top diplomats from around the world are today for the World Economic Forum. And Blinken has already met with Gulf allies to discuss the current situation in Gaza, but also the governance of the enclave once this war ends. That's according to a U.S. State Department official. But again, deep concerns about the lack of food, water, and medication for Palestinians in Gaza more than 6 months into this war. And aid agencies have really warned of famine, particularly in the north of Gaza. And Blinken says there has been measurable progress in aid delivery. Now, another major worry for mediators like the U.S., Qatar, and Egypt is a possible IDF ground incursion into Rafah. Blinken just repeated that the U.S. would not support that military operation if civilians are not protected. And we are now seeing satellite images in recent days of 2 tent encampments that have popped up, one west of Rafah, the other outside Han Yunis, suggesting that the IDF is readying to go into Rafah. Netanyahu has not commented on these images, I should say. And now, so far, more than 34,400 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza, and that number would skyrocket further, according to aid agencies, if such an incursion were to take place. Here's what the Egyptian Prime Minister Mustafa Badbouli said about the role of mediators at this time to prevent further suffering.
We have to do our utmost best to prevent this kind of invasion to Rafah and really to push both sides to reach an agreement to ceasefire or to hold fire and have at least a period where they can start the negotiation.
Now, there are about 1.5 million Palestinians in Rafah trying to survive in squalid conditions, many displaced multiple times, having traveled further and further south with nowhere else to go now. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu says 4 Hamas battalions are still operating there and they must be defeated. But inside Israel, it's worth mentioning, there's great pressure from the public to get the hostages home. And there isn't consensus within the coalition government about this either. Israel's foreign minister saying in recent days, if there's a hostage deal, the military operation could be suspended. That went over very poorly with the hardliners who are helping keep Netanyahu in power. They say destroying Hamas is a matter of national security, Heather, that must not be ignored.
Abby, even as the U.S. meets in Riyadh, senior Hamas officials are meeting in Cairo. There's a new round of ceasefire talks going on there. What has happened in Egypt so far this morning?
That's right. The Hamas delegation in Cairo, led by their Gaza deputy, they're looking over an Israeli proposal from Saturday. They're discussing with Egyptian and Qatari mediators. Blinken was asked about the deal. Here's what he had to say about the offer that's right now on the table.
Hamas has before it a proposal that is extraordinarily generous on the part of Israel. And in this moment, the only thing standing between the people of Gaza and a ceasefire is Hamas. They have to decide, and they have to decide quickly. I'm hopeful that they will make the right decision.
Now, the deal reportedly includes an exchange of Palestinian detainees in Israeli prisons for fewer than 40 hostages. An official briefed on the talks told Reuters news agency that the Israeli ask right now is for 33 hostages. In recent days, we did see video of 3 male captives, and that sparked some hope inside Israel, but concern, too, that some may have died in the more than 6 months of war. And we also know the major division between the two sides, the Gulf there, remains. Hamas wants a permanent end to the fighting, while Israel says only a temporary pause is possible. Another key demand from Hamas is that Palestinians are able to return to what's left of their homes in the north. Israel has not indicated at this point that it will allow this. But again, the latest ceasefire proposal in the hands of Hamas officials in Cairo. And Heather, we're awaiting their response now.
Thank you very much, Abby.